Pre-existing conditions in workers' compensation cases. My name is Bilal Kassim, Managing Partner at Pacific Workers, and today I'm going to explain everything it is you need to know about pre-existing conditions, meaning what are they and how they impact your workers' comp case. In workers' comp, we have a term called apportionment. Apportionment refers to the percentage or allocation of liability between what people would consider pre-existing conditions, non-industrial conditions, as well as the work injury themselves. For example, someone that may have a pre-existing back injury would have apportionment if they had a work comp injury that also affected the same body part. They would say some or all of your back injury is due to pre-existing conditions. You see this oftentimes where doctors will try to say that things like degenerative disc disease, pre-existing fractures, pre-existing disc herniations that were maybe smaller but now a little bit bigger have some attribution to pre-existing circumstances. Apportionment comes up in two different ways, either because of causation of injury, meaning that some or all of the injury itself was caused by either pre-existing or non-industrial sources, as well as permanent disability, which is the residual functional impairment you have once your medical condition has plateaued to the extent the doctors don't feel as though there's anything left that can be done to treat your injuries. What you need to know is that not all pre-existing injuries or conditions impact your workers' compensation case. Apportionment in workers' compensation is what's called an affirmative defense, meaning that it is not the injured worker's responsibility to disprove that their pre-existing conditions are impacting them or contributing to what they're going through with their work injury. It is the defendant's responsibility to prove apportionment, meaning that if you, the injured worker, prove that you have a work injury, it then shifts to the defendant to prove that you don't, or that some of your work injury isn't due to work, it's due to pre-existing conditions. There's been several cases that have come out recently, and more so in the past, that have really defined the scope of what that actually means. You can't just simply say because you have a pre-existing condition, you don't have a work injury. It's the doctor's responsibility to explain the who, what, where, when, why, meaning they have to explain in detail to the extent that you have a pre-existing condition, how that contributed or caused your current work injury or what you're going through now. So it is a touchy subject, it can be extremely complex. Usually it involves requesting supplemental reports from doctors, taking depositions, as well as gathering your medical records, and doing some research to determine whether or not the pre-existing condition is something that is cause for concern. It's not always, but sometimes it is, and when it does impact your case, it's sometimes unavoidable. Sometimes someone does have a pre-existing herniated disc in their spine. Maybe it was a 5mm disc bulge, but then you slipped and fell at work, and now it's an 8mm disc bulge and you still need surgery. That doesn't mean you can't recover. It doesn't mean you don't get the surgery. It just means at the end of the day, there's going to be some attribution to pre-existing condition. In workers' comp, think of Humpty Dumpty. It doesn't matter if you're cracked all the way through and then you fell off the wall. You still fell off the wall and exploded, and it's the insurance company's responsibility to put you back together. Now, it's different if you were no different than before your work injury and no different after. At that point, that may be called an exacerbation, not an aggravation, and you've basically returned to your baseline, which would be the same as before. So the insurance company wouldn't necessarily have any added responsibility. What that looks like when it comes time to talk about permanent disability is you get a permanent disability rating from your doctor. It's actually considered a whole person impairment, and then we do a bunch of math and it turns into permanent disability, which is the monetary value. And sometimes that gets adjusted by the percentage of fault. So the doctor may say, you know what, I think 40% of your pre-existing knee or back condition was due to age or prior accidents or things like that. And what that will do then is it will take away 40% of the permanent disability rating that you would have, which then translates to the monetary value. So let's say your permanent disability was $10,000 and then you had 40% apportionment. That might reduce it down to like $4,000 or $5,000 or whatever the corresponding permanent disability rating and value actually is. So that's how apportionment and pre-existing conditions work in workers' comp. For more, be sure to subscribe and check out our other videos.